The nation saying it's not the right venue. Stephen Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Good morning, Stephen Roberts. First, let's start with the Democrats. I'm not so sure this isn't over with. I think Bernie Sanders is keeping that door open more than just a crack.
I don't quite agree because he is his hope, McGraw, is on somehow persuading these superdelegates. There were 700 of them. These are party regulars. You got to remember who they are. These are party regulars. These are not President of College Young Democrats who are showing up. These are people who are committed party operatives, and the notion that somehow they would turn away from Hillary Clinton, who has gotten 2 million more votes than Bernie Sanders, that they would turn away from Hillary Clinton and embrace a 74-year-old socialist who for most of his career has never even been a Democrat? Come on, pal. That's just not going to happen.
All right, maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe it's I'm tired of talking to Trump and I'm hoping something else happens. Let's talk Trump. Let's talk Kasich. Let's talk Cruz. It looks like they're starting to go after Kasich, which can only mean that Kasich's starting to make some inroads.
You're absolutely right about that, and particularly Trump says Kasich is stealing his votes as if somehow what he's doing is illegitimate, which is just silly, and it's one more example of how Donald Trump does not understand how politics works. People run for president for many, many reasons, including ego, including wanting to advocate a point of view. John Kasich, it's true, has no mathematical chance to win the nomination on the first ballot. But it's also true that John Kasich reflects and represents a very significant segment of the Republican Party, what might be called the governing wing of the Republican Party, people who actually believe that you get elected to office to actually do something. And the way you do that is actually work with the other party. And John Kasich has done that his whole career, 18 years as a member of Congress, 2 terms as governor of the most important state politically in America, Ohio. So to say that Kasich is an illegitimate candidate misunderstands the nature of American politics and misunderstands the nature of the Republican electorate.
It seems, Stephen Roberts, that this convention jockeying is getting more and more attention. The rules, who's going to write the rules, who's sweet-talking which delegates, and that seems to be a game that Donald Trump has no idea how to play.
You're absolutely right about that. Now, he has hired a very seasoned Republican insider in Washington, unknown to the general public. His name is Paul Manafort. He knows what he's doing, and he can shore up the Trump forces. But in the end, I'm just not sure how much this is going to matter. Let's game out the scenario. Suppose Trump loses in Wisconsin, which I think he will, and suppose through a variety of forces, either because he loses other primaries, because Cruz and others manage to pry away a variety of delegates, and the Rubio delegates line up behind Cruz or whatever. So what happens at the convention? So Trump is 100 or 200 votes short of a majority. If that means that the convention turns to somebody else, which I don't think will happen, but suppose it does, what happens next? Donald Trump walks out of that hall in Cleveland. He takes a bunch of his supporters with him. He threatens to run as a third party. And whoever is nominated as a result of that convention is severely wounded on day one. So it's fun to talk about these scenarios, and they certainly have some plausibility, and they reflect the fact, McGraw, that as it's been true all year, that a majority of Republicans are definitely not sold on Donald Trump as their nominee. But how do you actually stop him in practice? Much more difficult question.
Last week was a pretty bad week for any politician named Donald Trump if it weren't for Donald Trump. Did any of those scandals last week hurt him at all in the polls?
It depends on which lens you're looking through. If you're saying, does it hurt him with the core group, 30, 35, 38% of Republican voters, maybe 40%, who are committed Trumpians? No, it didn't hurt them with him at all, because the fact is they're not for Donald Trump because of his positions on abortion or trade or anything else. They're for Donald Trump because he's strong, because he's a celebrity, because he tells it like it is. Their emotional reactions have little or nothing to do with specific policies. But from a longer perspective, it had hurt him with potential swing voters in key states like Missouri, You're talking about moderate Republican women in the suburbs of St. Louis or Kansas City who might have voted for Mitt Romney and now see Donald Trump as someone who is increasingly hostile to women. 77% of the voters in our latest ABC poll had 77% of female voters had an unfavorable view of Donald Trump. So if you're thinking about the fall election, I think the damage is significant. If you're thinking about the hardcore Trumpians, they were not swayed.
Stephen Roberts, thanks for checking in. Have a good week.
Okay, pal.
757 KTRS.
One of the safest and most secure investments you can make is the remodeling of your kitchen or bath.